And we're live with Be Green with Amy.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Be Green with Amy. I'm Amy. After adopting a whole food plant-based lifestyle, my hubby Rick and I lost over 130 pounds. Now I coach others on their plant-based journey. Just Task Voice. Let's welcome our guest.
Dr. Jeffrey Pierce is a double board certified family medicine physician. He is passionate about using a whole food plant-based diet to help people get off medications and live longer, fuller lives. Please click like to help Be Green with Amy. Welcome, Dr. Jeffrey Pierce.
Greetings, Green Warrior, and welcome back, Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much for having me on your show again, Amy.
You know, Dr. Pierce, many people hear the term ultra-processed foods and they might not fully understand what it means. And we're going to learn more about that today because, you know, maybe how to differentiate between processed and ultra-processed foods too. And you're going to tell us about why these foods are so concerning to our health. And Green Warrior, I wanted to ask you if you wanted to start in the process of learning. Maybe you can share with us what is one ultra processed food that you struggle to give up. Maybe you can tell us about that in the chat, and I'd love to hear from you. Okay, I think what we're going to do is we'll start off with our game of true or false. Okay, so this is our game of true or false, and Green Warrior, I'm going to ask you a true or false question and ask for you to type in your best guess in the chat. And then Dr. Pierce is going to give us his expert answer. All right, I'm ready for this. Okay, so our first true or false question is, true or false, ultra-processed foods often contain ingredients like emulsifiers and artificial additives that are not commonly found in a home kitchen. Okay, Green Warrior, what do you think? Dr. Pierce?
That is a true statement. Ultra-processed foods have just a whole bunch of ingredients, many of which have been created in a lab, and things that won't sound too familiar and not something that you can open up your spice cabinet and grab and sprinkle on your meal that you are making in general, that's for sure.
Jolie, you got that answer right. I wanted to let everybody know that Dr. Pearson, you can tell us a little bit about it, but you had actually wrote a wonderful article in Health Science magazine, and it was about the ultra-processed foods, and you wrote that here. And it's a wonderful article. And for those of you that are not familiar with the National Health Association, I'm a member, and that's why I have the magazine. And it is a wonderful organization for so many reasons. The magazine is awesome because it's not sponsored, so there's no commercials or ads in here influencing what is being said. But your article here, it's a wonderful article, and you're going to kind of go through a lot of the things that you talked about in the article, right?
Yes, and I totally agree with you what you're saying about the National Health Association and their magazine Health Science. I've had the honor of contributing to it now a handful of times, and they're just a top-notch group who have been talking about the health benefits of getting outside in nature and eating a plant-based diet, doing a little water fasting, etc., for decades and decades. And their magazine Health Science is really top notch. They have good articles, beautiful photos. They always have a nice section on recipes and on success stories, and so it really hits so many of the points that I think a good magazine should hit when for folks who are trying to eat as healthy as possible, gets their exercise in, etc. And so I highly recommend checking out the National Health Association, becoming a member. It's not very much money and it will get you this beautiful ad-free magazine multiple times a year.
Archives of all of them as well, and just a plethora of wonderful information going back, I think, over 75 years. So, yeah, it is. I love being a part of it. Okay, let's go with the next true or false question. True or false? The rise of ultra processed foods can be attributed in part to government subsidies that make processed ingredients like corn syrup and soybean oil cheaper to produce. Ring Warrior, what do you think? And Dr. Pierce.
That is another true statement. We'll talk about the multiple factors that have played a part in making ultra processed foods a incredibly common food-like substance in our daily meals. Something like 50 to 60, 55 to 60% of our calories now in the standard American diet come from ultra processed foods. And one of the reasons why they are so commonly available is that to the consumer, they tend to be not all that expensive. And for the producer, of course, they're even less expensive, made oftentimes for pennies compared to what the true value would be if they weren't benefiting from government subsidies on GMO corn, soy, etc.
Yeah, I think that's so hard for some people to wrap their head around, the fact that the true cost of these things isn't reflected in the purchase price because of all these subsidies in so many parts of our food that has become available to us. And I think that the first question that you addressed about the additives and the emulsifiers and the ingredients that aren't commonly found in a home kitchen, I think that's just a wonderful kind of definition, right? As far as, is this process that, but you make a distinction of process and then ultra processed. So what do you want to first talk about? I know I've kind of said
Sure. No, you're setting the playing field really nicely. I think starting off with definitions is a good way to start. And a very there are complex and there are simple definitions out there for ultra processed food. And Carlos Monteiro, who is a research doctor out of Brazil, is the person who coined the term. He and his team and came out with the first official definition, I think, back in 2009, and broke it down using something called the NOVA system from group 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's a little bit complicated, but basically on one end of the scale, an unprocessed food or minimally processed food is what they call group 1. And it's basically, if you walk outside into your garden and you pick a tomato, that is an unprocessed food. If you serve yourself a bowl that has brown rice amongst other ingredients, well, that brown rice, I would say, is minimally processed, right? Because they had to take it off the plant, they had to process it to get the husk off and all this kind of stuff. So it's in a form where you can eat it, and you've boiled it, cooked it to make it edible. But it's basically what we would call a whole food, and in this case, minimally processed. Now, on the other end of the spectrum are the foods that are known as ultra processed foods. And these are foods that are often based on some part of easily, cheaply produced plants like corn, soy, wheat. They have a lot of healthy components taken out in part to increase the shelf life. And so, often the parts that contain the fiber, that contain a number of the minerals and vitamins, have to be removed, making them more shelf stable. And then other substances are added back in also to extend their shelf life and to make them more palatable. Because if you break down corn into protein and the carbohydrate and the fat, and you only take one part of that out, well, it's just going to not taste like corn anymore. It's not going to taste right. And so when that has been processed out, you need to add some things back in to make it palatable, to maybe make it have a good crunch, but then melt in your mouth. Maybe the color is a little bit, beige and not very appealing. So you got to add in some colors. and then let's put some salt, oil, and sugar on it. And at the end, you have something that began usually as a plant, but and was healthy at the beginning, but is far removed from that. It often has ingredients that your grandmother wouldn't have heard about, and like we said before, is not something typically you would find the ingredients for in your kitchen, so that you could make your own, Twinkie or Twizzlers or something like that at home. So that's sort of like the overall look at what is unprocessed and minimally processed, what is ultra processed. And it turns out that the healthiest foods on the planet, and the ones that are going to make us healthy, that are going to keep the planet actually healthier, is when we're focused on those whole and minimally processed plant foods. So that's pretty much the definition. And we can talk a little bit next, if you'd like, on how all this kind of happened in a very quick pace and short amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's the natural progression that we should find out about that. So tell us about it.
Okay, so the way I describe these definitions, I think probably to most people that wouldn't sound particularly appealing, but if you look at the sort of scientific definition of it. But so then, how did in 50 years or so, how did we incorporate such a large part into the average diet, to where more than half of our calories are coming from these types of foods? And it was a combination of events. You mentioned at the beginning that true and false question, talking about subsidies. So the U.S. government takes our tax dollars, and one of the things that it does with it is lowers the cost of corn, soy, wheat, etc. It can help farmers, which is, of course, a very difficult job to know from one year to the next, having a little bit more stability, increasing the production of some things. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these staples are processed either so that they make these ultra processed foods, or are used in some form or fashion to feed factory farmed animals, which of course is the vast majority of animals that are eaten in America come from a factory farm, either a huge warehouse with thousands of chickens stuffed in, or thousands of cows, pigs, etc., fish farms, etc., which are often being fed. All of these various animals are often being fed these sort of corn and soy, etc., type subsidized staples. So that's one. Another is that there are just advancements in how to preserve food. And how to ship food. So new emulsifiers, new stabilizers, new techniques like vacuum packing and deep freezing, and better shipping methods. They all sort of built on themselves, to where all of a sudden, if you're old enough, you remember when the first TV dinners first started coming out, and how it was a no-brainer for typically the housewife at the time to either spend all day preparing a couple of meals for the family, or you could get this thing that came in like a metal tray with a plastic cover and pull that off. Boom, you've heated it up, it's ready to go, and there's less cleanup time. And so, what an exciting time, I think, for people busy, working one or two jobs, lots of kids, hungry mouths to feed. And it just seemed like, sure, this makes total sense to do it. And of course, while there were some benefits to that, and some maybe benefits even greater than they actually were when you look at the marketing aspect as well. But it turns out there's a whole lot of downsides to ultra processed foods, as we've been finding out over the last 50 years.
Oh yeah, I was asking the Green Warriors if there was any ultra processed food that they struggled to give up, and Carrie said probably instant noodles.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. If she was making, if any of us were making noodles from scratch, I mean, oh my gosh, I'm proud that we make a whole lot of things from scratch in my household, and I have never made ramen noodles from scratch. Now you can buy you can still buy plain ramen noodles, and even some that are based on like black rice, which is much healthier than white because it's not processed or like that, and make your own ramen from scratch in that sense. But yeah, pulling off the lid, especially when folks, the classic is in college and you're strapped for cash and you buy a 24 pack of ramen, instant ramen, and there you've got dinners for a while. But the ease of purchase and consuming and cleanup, of course, comes with a price on our health and in other areas as well.
Yeah, I learned from Brenda Davis, the registered dietitian. She's been on the show a couple of times. She actually did a really large study at the Marshall Islands about diabetes. I'm sure you're familiar with all that.
Yeah.
But she said that one of the staples of their food diet was ramen noodles.
Mm.
And then, well, actually, she said to make it even worse, they would sprinkle like a Kool-Aid powder packet on top of it, and they wouldn't even cook it. They would just eat it like that. And what I didn't know about ramen noodles is that they are deep fried in oil.
Mm.
Yeah. So, not only are they processed, but they've got, lots of oil. But,
Wow.
but I think that Carrie brings up, in addition to saying that plain noodles aren't as addictive, which I agree, but she also brings up a really good point that she's a mom and she's more strapped for cash than a student. And these kinds of foods, like you said, they're heavily subsidized. They're easily prepared for somebody busy. They don't spoil. There's just so many pros that it especially if you're a mom, you got all these kids, you're coming home, and it's a lot. And so we have to figure out how to change this and what to do about it. Oh,
Yeah, that's
my kids eat them dry out of the packet too.
Thank you, Carrie, for
Thank you for sharing.
all your honesty and sharing. And I hear you. And we'll definitely talk about the addictive nature of these foods. You mentioned that that plain ramen noodles aren't addicting, and that's part of the reason why ultra processed foods have become such a problem. Because if they were just as palatable as the next thing, then maybe you'd eat it every once in a while, but not as much as, not you in particular, Carrie, but maybe we wouldn't eat it all the time, which of course is what a lot of folks do, because the slogans often say that, bet you can't eat one, once you pop, you just can't stop. They're talking about their addictive nature and sort of bragging about it in their slogans. They light up similar parts in the brain as addictive substances like nicotine and cocaine and heroin and things like that. It's on addiction to ultra processed foods. In some studies they look at is on par with things like addiction to alcohol. And it's not a weakness. It's a personal weakness or anything. It's just that they've had lots of smart people, lots of food scientists working on what is the most palatable, most irresistible type of product that we can make so that it sells more. And of course, they're a company that's trying to sell more. And so on one level, you can't blame all of these companies that are trying to satisfy their shareholders and have progress. But at the same time, we need to realize them for what they are, is companies that are just trying to make money, and not companies that are trying to make it healthy for us, which of course is a little bit tricky because you look at the front of a Fruit Loops box and they might say now with 11 vitamins and minerals, and to the busy mom and dad buying that, they're like, well, at least it's got vitamins and minerals. Of course, part of that is just marketing, and part of it is that they have to add stuff back because they've taken so much stuff out during the ultra processing manufacturing of it. So I hear what you're saying, Carrie. You're obviously you're not alone, and we've all struggled with it. And I think being here is a big part of how we can sort of brainstorm to find alternatives, because we want the healthy choice to be the easy choice. And right now, unfortunately, the easy choice is usually not the healthy choice, as we find when we are at a checkout stand at, Home Depot. Why is there candy? Why are there other sorts of ultra processed snacks at the checkout line there? It's just so easy. You just grab it, and it's everywhere. So of course, we need to find ways to bypass that marketing, bypass the sort of sneaky ways that they get those substances into our grocery carts.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to look for more questions, and if you just want to move on, and I'm going to check and see if we have any other questions.
Sure. Maybe before we move on to some of the reasons why ultra processed foods are harming us, I do want to say one other thing about the marketing, which is one of the big reasons that we've been talking a little bit about on why they're so prevalent. And this gets under my skin. It gets me a little bit angry, and I think hopefully the more people think about this, the more they will see it in a similar way. Is that these companies spend millions of dollars, depending on the company, on advertising, and a lot of this is geared directly towards children. And that is one of the things that is, I think we should be up in arms about, that next time you're in the grocery store, and most people are already aware of this, but next time you're in the grocery store, see at what level are the sugary cereals at. Are they up at the top shelf? Or are they at about 1 to 2 feet off the ground, where they are at eye level for the toddlers, for the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds? We might be strong enough to say, hey, I'm not going to eat this for me. But then when this child that we love so much is holding this box of Pop-Tarts at us with a tear in their eye, that it's really hard to say no to that. And the companies know that. They pay top dollar to get prime real estate in the grocery stores. The grocery stores, of course, need to make money and keep the doors open. And so right when you are checking out at the checkout stand, what you have right there before, as you're paying for your fruits and veggies that you purchased, are not more fruits and veggies at the checkout stand, but it's the candy bars, and other things that are quite bad for us and quite addicting. And then they also will market, of course, during TV, directly to children, to TV, during cartoons, on video games, on social media. And it's I want to get this number right because it blew me away, but for the average child watching TV may see tens of thousands of junk food commercials per year. When I saw that reference, it blew me away. And the other thing that I learned while researching this was that often child psychologists can be part of the team that are developing the best marketing for kids. And it's just like, wow, wait a second, we've got, as a physician, I said an oath that first do no harm, and basically our job is to try to alleviate suffering. That there's folks that are saying, how can we better sell Coca-Cola to kids from a medical psychological standpoint? I think it's a little bit nauseating. And these sorts of practices, of course, sound familiar for anyone who has bought cigarettes or had trouble with tobacco. And some of the big tobacco companies like Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds, who Philip Morris owns Marlboro, Reynolds owns Camels, have purchased at various times big companies like Nabisco, General Foods, and Kraft. And so some of the same folks that were responsible for getting us hooked on cigarettes are responsible for getting us hooked on these substances as well. And so I really look at them with a whole nother lie, with a whole nother point of view, not just they're not great for us, but it's like, no, they're actually really bad for us, and there are some manipulative people trying to get them into our kitchens.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think for some people, I mean, for most people, it's just an addictive thing, just like, like you would say with crack or with, drugs or alcohol, food also, especially the ultra processed foods. And sometimes I'll say to my clients, get mad,
Yeah.
get angry, and just say, yeah, I really want that badly, but when I do it, I'm voting for them.
Yeah.
And so maybe that can be a strategy, as stressed as you are and as good as that makes you feel for the moment, get angry, because this isn't right. That should be allowed to happen, and especially for our kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a travesty that in parts of the world you are safer buying, you're more likely to get a Coca-Cola, which is safer than, drinking the water that's locally produced in the municipality. And we should put our dollars into having safe water in these areas, and not to these addictive substances. And I think getting mad about these sorts of facts is helpful, because I think with that sort of light, we see that these companies are hurting our children, and I don't think they're meaning to hurt our children, but they are meaning to keep their business going. And there have been some examples where I think it was in Pepsi, where they had someone who was high up saying, "Okay, we're going to work on trying to improve the health of various things," and it looks like, and when those steps were taken, the sales went down a little bit, and that person was kicked out and replaced.
Mm.
And so it's just, in a company where you have to be increasing your finances, increasing your gains every quarter, anything that doesn't sell is not going to be supported. So
Yeah.
we got to say too bad, and we're going to focus our energy on buying things like that poster behind you that says "Food for Life," which is a strawberry, and might go bad. It's going to go bad faster in the fridge than a ho-ho or a Twinkie, but of course, it's also going to keep us alive better.
Yeah. When I was raising my children, I hadn't not even heard about the plant-based lifestyle, and I thought that I was eating healthfully, and I wasn't, but compared to other people, I was. But so one of the things that I would do is, if I purchased grapes, I would wash all of them. And then I would get a little colander and put them in the colander and just put them in the refrigerator, so that this way, when my kids wanted to eat something, because I was trying to practice what these processed foods companies are doing, is convenience.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's out there and all you have to do is grab it and eat it, and I would even, if I had time, I would cut the little sprigs of grapes so that they could just grab a sprig and they would have 3 or 4 of them at a time,
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of some of the hacks that I did as a busy mom of 3. But it is. But the thing is, you don't want these, like you said, you don't want these foods to go bad. And after being in this lifestyle for a while, you figure out that there's not a way to have these foods go bad, as long as you can either throw it in a blender, roast it in the oven, put it in a stew. There's always ways to rescue these things before they go bad. But yeah. So this is something that I think a lot of people are very surprised about, and that even I've learned that these ultra processed foods get into the feed of the animals, like things like broken pieces of candy, like right, like a
Wow.
candy factory. Of course, they're gonna have bits and pieces of broken candy. They don't waste it. They sell it off to be put in the feed so that those animals can get fat, because they sell them by the pound, right? So
Right.
yeah, so that kind of gets mixed into things too. So get angry, everybody, and say, I don't want to be a part of this system by purchasing these things and supporting it. And maybe that's a way to get through it.
Sure. And you know, it's not that there's zero benefits from food that's shelf stable. And you know, someone who's working multiple jobs, has a bunch of kids, can't go to the store very frequently. Their closest store is 1 or 2 bus rides away. The freezer, you know, is broken. The fridge is broken. There's no oven. There's certainly reasons why there sometimes these foods can come in handy. And so I don't want to make it sound like there's zero potential benefit for some folks, but there are healthier ways to work around most, if not all, of those things and situations. And so, uh, you know, I think that's worth mentioning at least. So if it's okay with you, let's talk a little bit about why they're a little bit more about why they're not good for us, and then we can in the last section let's talk about ways to beat the system and to make the easy choice the healthy choice. Yeah, sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Um, okay, so you know, so one of the reasons why they're not great for us is that a lot of the healthy things are taken out. So we mentioned that earlier at the beginning of the chat. Things like fiber, things like vitamins, things, you know, as you're breaking down soy, which is an incredibly healthy food for us. It's in the legume family. It has the phytoestrogens, which can be protective for breast cancer. That it's got so much fiber that for feeding our microbiome, which is the you know, bacterial, et cetera, population living in our large intestine, that plays a huge role in our health, not only our gut health but our overall health. But when you break apart soy into the protein and the fat and the carbs, and using various techniques with chemicals and heat and chopping things up, things are lost. And so, you know, when you add all of this up, we see, you know, taking healthy things out, adding unhealthy things back in, making us overeat. That this is a large reason why in 2017 the Global Burden of Disease study, which was it's a landmark study, I think the largest of its kind, showed that the greatest risk factor for dying was based on having a poor diet. And so this is not something that I just am on a pedestal about because I have something against the ultra processed food companies and doing this out of spite, but it's actually based on research that shows that whether we're looking at a group of people over time or doing a randomized study like Kevin Hall did, where he locked people up into the hospital under a study situation and had them eat healthy, less processed food and ultra processed food, that they were gaining more weight on the ultra processed food. We just have multiple studies showing, of course, that this is bad for us. So taking out healthy ingredients is part of it. And another part is adding back the unhealthy stuff. And so I think we would be remiss to not mention the over 10,000 additives in our food system. 10,000. That's a lot. It's a big number. And a lot of them have not actually been documented and tested adequately through the government. The FDA doesn't actually keep a complete list of all the additives in our food stream, which is a bit scary to me when any company which is sort of self-regulating for safety, that there's always conflict of interest there because it's a battle between safety and the bottom line. And even really honest folks working in companies, there's just studies, of course, whether it's related to food or not, when we are self-regulating and it affects the bottom line, things can fall through the cracks. And it turns out that, you know, some substance that's been in the food system actually was risky for us, you know, red dye number 3 or whatever, for example. But a lot of these things, like various emulsifiers and thickeners that are showing to be bad for our gut health, for example. There is a tendency to overeat these, and I think a big part, and I should also recommend at this point, I think Chris Van Tulken's book called Ultra Processed People. If anyone is interested in what we're talking about today and have not read Ultra Processed People by Chris Van Tulken, who is a physician in England, please check his book out, because that was a major source of education for me and inspiration as well. But one of the things that he talks about is, based on his research, is how we just we work a whole lot less to chew things nowadays as compared to 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago, because the food processing industry has made things much easier to chew and swallow. And when you can take a bite of something, take 3 bites and swallow, as compared to something that takes 30 bites, well, then you can just see quite easily how you get more calories in the same amount of time. To the point, actually, to where our facial morphology, the shape of our faces, is changing because the muscles that we use for chewing are becoming smaller over time, because we just don't have to chew as much. And even these crunchy foods like a potato chip, next time you are eating something ultra processed like a potato chip, it'll notice how it crunches for about 1, 2, 3 bites, and then it becomes a mush that's just almost dissolvable, easily swallowable. And that is part of why we overeat it, and why it gets into our bloodstream so quickly, because it is broken down into tiny particles that can be absorbed much more quickly than if we ate a meal of greens and beans. It takes longer to chew it. It takes longer for that to be absorbed as well.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I think that sometimes is a reason why people who adopt this lifestyle sometimes may have some gas or digestive issues at first, because they're not used to chewing, right? And if they don't chew their food to a cream the way it's meant to be chewed, they just kind of swallow it, and then that can sometimes, in the beginning, maybe cause a little gas or discomfort. Yeah.
Yeah, and particularly that there's fiber getting down to our colon, which of course is how we evolved to feed our microbiome over millennia. And now, for the first time, perhaps we're getting real loads of fiber-rich foods down into our large intestine, as compared to something that was absorbed way earlier in the small intestine, and has been, that sort of a diet, been sort of starving our microbiome. Speaking of the biome, I guess I have one more thing that I'd like to mention before we talk about how to sort of beat the system, which is the effect of all this on our environment. And I think a lot of folks are a bit anxious about what we see happening to the planet, what we see happening to wildlife, their habitats shrinking, the Amazon rainforest being cut down so that soy can be planted to feed cattle, some of which end up on our plates in America, and that these companies that are making these products are using these raw materials that are harming the planet. We are pushing out other creatures because of what we are choosing to put on the ends of our forks. And not only on that level, but of course, everything processed pretty much comes in a plastic bag or some other similar container, to where almost no plastic is actually recycled, including all of the recyclable plastics, the ones with the little triangle and the number 1, 2, 3, whatever. Less than 10% of all plastics ever made have been recycled, which was another number I came upon doing the research for this, and it just makes me very sad that we're destroying our environment. Of course, the plastics, little by little, break down, get into the ocean, then get back into our food. And not only is it harming the other animals on the planet, but that, of course, is also harming us. And so by choosing to eat, fruit that didn't need to be wrapped in plastic, by growing some of our own stuff, by buying stuff in bulk, by eating as unprocessed and minimally processed as possible, it's just better for not only for ourselves but for the planet. And I think that that's an important message to talk about.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people get caught up in how big our Earth is and how vast the oceans are, and what is this one little thing really going to do? But it's and they drive and look into their grocery store and they just see some food there and they don't think about how that's multiplied so many times in their town, in their state, and in their country, and then in the world. And and then year after year, it is quite a lot. So these are all great reasons for avoiding the processed foods. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're, to your point, I think it all adds up, but I don't think any of us can realistically aim for 100%, 100% of the time, and the anxiety and the stress of trying to aim for that, if we don't give ourselves a break, of course, is bad for our health as well. And I'm sure you've worked with folks who are stressed out about, oh, I ate this one thing once last week, and is it going to ruin everything? Or I went to a birthday party and there are lots of little individual things in plastic. It's just like we can do what we can do, and try to do a little bit better next time around, and learn from hacks that are working for other people. But yeah, just to be realistic about it. I'm not a shining example of how to never buy anything with plastic and how to never buy some processed thing for my kid when she's begging for it. I mean, I wish I could say that my daughter doesn't never wants anything ultra processed, but of course that's not the way it is, and she gets some of that. So, but just seeing it for what it is and trying to keep it at a minimum for what works for you and your family.
Yeah, that's right. Every little bit helps. You think about if you ever saw ants making an anthill and they're all carrying this tiny little grain of soil or sand or whatever it is that they're using, and it doesn't look very significant. But if we all can do just a little bit, it can make a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's chat about some techniques to eat healthier and to keep ultra processed foods out of our diet. Sound good?
Yeah, I love it.
All right. So I like when talking about this and when thinking about this, step one is what Chef AJ, our friend, likes to say is if it's in your mouth, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth, which means if we have something that is pretty addicting to eat, it's a lot harder to get dressed and get the keys and get the purse and get in the car and drive to pick it up. It's harder to do that than if it's just as soon as you open up your cupboard, it's right there for you. So step one is try to leave it at the grocery store. And that usually means, shopping in the produce section, shopping in the bulk section, and trying to just leave those things. Of course, can be difficult, but leave those things at the store. Don't go to the store hungry. Go to the store when you're full. Go to the store with a list so that you're saying, I'm sticking to my list and I'm only buying these things. For some folks, it helps to write a budget out and say, okay, this is my budget. And actually look at the price when I am buying bacon, which is a processed food as well, and some of these other things that are higher price. I'll actually save money if I buy beans instead. And so there are lots of ways to try to keep them at the store. Maybe don't go shopping with your kids if they're always begging for the sweets and the cookies and all these kinds of things, and hard to say no to them. If possible, don't take them with you to the grocery store. And I'm sure your audience and you have lots of other ways to just not let them get into the house, or if they're in the house already. I sometimes chat up with my patients to say, put those really addicting things, to where you have to get on a stool to get to it, and it's way in the back, or it's in the garage in a box. Because when you open up your cupboards, you want to see the healthy things there right in front of you, within reach. Make the unhealthy stuff really harder to get to. I guess that's another tip that I think can help some folks.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
So the other thing is, what can you do? So another tip is, how do we sort of replace whole food or minimally processed meals, and put those in to replace the others. And so, breakfast cereals, of course, there's an easy switch by trying to go with oatmeal, and then, oh, but doc, I don't like the consistency of oatmeal. Well, there's different ways you can do it. You can do overnight oats. If you don't like that consistency, you can do prepare your oats and just pour boiling water over them, and they'll be ready to eat in 5 minutes, and that's a different consistency. Or use steel cut oats or oat groats, which is a very different consistency compared to rolled oats. And so different ways to do that. If you really love dipping stuff into guacamole and hummus, of course, you can use carrots, little baby carrots, or broccoli, or bell peppers cut up. And that's another way to get more veggies in. Really our drink of choice is best when it's just water. And there are certainly health benefits to tea and coffee. Drink your coffee black if at all possible, or a little bit of almond milk or soy milk. Not one of these creamers that when you look at the ingredients, it seems like there's 30 ingredients in them, and more than half of which I have no idea what they mean. And so, but really, skipping those soft drinks, even if they're diet, skipping the energy drinks, skipping the drive-through coffee with who knows what kind of pump of this and pump of that and creamer of this, and just get the healthy aspect of that coffee as just the coffee. Whether it's decaf or not, there'll be health benefits to it. I'm a fan. It's very easy to buy sliced bread in a bag, and there are some brands that are healthier than others. But you can also learn how to make your own bread. I've got a couple of loaves rising right now down in the kitchen, or buy a bread maker machine where you can just throw ingredients in and leave it. Or perhaps if you're lucky to live near a nice bakery that uses, just flour, yeast, salt, and water to make a loaf of bread instead of the additional 10 ingredients necessary to keep it shelf stable for, a month, instead of the typical artisan bread, that'll start to get hard after about, 3 days. And so I think there's ways to do it, but we just have to adjust our practices and get ready to think outside the box.
Yeah, it's a pretty fast-paced world, and we're expected to do a lot more in a lot less time. And so, unfortunately, when people cut corners in order to make time to do the things that they're trying to do, some important things get cut, as in the preparation and things like that. So, but in the long term, then you can have bad health, and then that's going to take up a lot of your time. So,
yeah, and we're very good at realizing the immediacy of things. Oh, this tastes good. Oh, this is quick. Oh, my kid likes it. I certainly experience this all the time personally, sure. But we are harder. We are not as good as thinking, okay, I eat this. If I continue to eat this 10 years from now, maybe I have diabetes. Maybe I have peripheral neuropathy from the diabetes, and I have burning and tingling in my fingers, and then my quality of life has gone down. And we just, as a species, we're not as good thinking about these long-term things because they're more vague and maybe they're not going to happen to me. And I don't even know if I'm going to be around in 10 years. So why worry about it? And I think that it's all reasonable things and to say, but we need to eat like we're going to live, 100 years. And when they learn from you and some of these folks out there, of course, the food is delicious, and it just also happens to be healthy at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have some questions that have been coming in. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over before we look at the questions?
I think questions would be great. We'll come up with a couple of other tips and tricks on how to help with the cravings, like getting good quality sleep, because we know the next day we make better food choices actually if we slept well. And a lot of people don't think about that. They're like, oh, I just have the willpower, or I don't have the willpower. But like if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, our hunger hormones are all out of whack and are telling us, oh, life is turned upside down. You only slept 3 hours last night. You might as well pile on the calories now because we're in crisis mode and there's actually physiologic changes. And so by trying to shoot for those 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, if possible, it actually helps us make the healthier choice the next day. It's easier that way. But anyway, yeah, let's get some questions from the group.
And there have been times when I've experienced it, and my clients too, that when they're tired, they think they're hungry. And I think it's what you said about turning everything upside down. But I think also that the body is saying, I'm running low on energy because I'm tired. So maybe the solution would be to get more fuel. So I think that may have something to do with it too. Okay, so let's see. So we'll start. Okay, well, Carrie had a question, and she actually had two. So I'm just going to say that she wanted to know if you considered meat to be processed, but she also asked that about if dairy is ultra processed. So we may as well just talk about them both.
Yeah, so I'm going to the actual Nova system from Carlos Monteiro to see where he and his group lists them. So
Question, go ahead and put that in the chat, and we'll see if we can ask Dr. Pierce your question as well.
Yeah, so I don't see where they are listed in the Nova system group 1, 2, 3, 4. I know that that certainly things like processed meats, so bacon, salami, ham, all the deli meats, the breakfast sausages, the pepperoni pizzas, all that kind of stuff. Those are all typically considered ultra processed because of the substances that are added to preserve the meats for longer. And of course, when we had very limited access to calories ages ago, and preserving the meat from the one cow that you slaughtered per year was sometimes important for survival. Of course, we don't have a calorie shortage anymore, so there's no need to depend on processed meats. But anyway, so I would that's generally considered ultra processed is a backyard chicken that you raised and killed to eat. Is that the same thing? I think from a processing standpoint, it is not exactly the same thing. I still don't personally recommend it. I think that the best source of protein are plants, particularly anything in the bean and chickpea and lentil category. But that's kind of how we look at it. And then is the dairy creamer that we talked about for coffee that has 50 ingredients that is certainly ultra processed is fresh milk from a cow that your neighbor milked and brought over for you. That is much less processed. But of course, we need to pasteurize our dairy products for safety because we're buying them in these. There's lots of steps involved in the process of it, and we need to make sure that it's safe. But again, I think even if you don't consider cow's milk that's been flash pasteurized as very processed, I still think that there's better alternatives, particularly soy milk, which is high in protein and has the benefits of the phytoestrogens. We gave a talk the other day on prostate cancer, and there's tons of studies that have linked increased risk of prostate cancer to animal milk. But you'll have a lower risk of men have a lower risk of prostate cancer if they will substitute in soy milk instead. And so, part of the answer, and when we're making our choices day to day, should I eat this? Should I not eat this? Is it healthy or is it not healthy, et cetera? You're always comparing it to something else. And would a glass of milk be healthier than a full glass of dairy creamer? Potentially. Would a glass of soy milk be healthier than a glass of cow's milk? Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So going along with dairy, C wanted to know, what's your opinion on yogurt? What would be a better alternative snack?
So fermentation is something that's been around for a long time and is usually considered still a minimal processing, fermentation for sauerkraut, for kimchi, for natural yogurt. In all fairness, when you look at studies, the fermented dairy products tend to be better for you than things like butter and cheese and milk. But you can also get fermented. You can also get plant-based yogurts as well, which has the benefit of the fermentation process, but is based on whatever the plant component is on that, which is of course better for the cow, better for the environment, and could be better for you. It depends in part on the on what's added to it when I'm thinking about yogurts in general, but also plant-based yogurts, right? If there's a whole bunch of sugar added to it, I wouldn't choose that option. And so I have a buddy who's vegan and a doc and real smart guy, and he makes his own soy yogurt. He starts with a spoonful of. You can start with a spoonful of store-bought yogurt, or I think you can also start with like either a starter or a probiotic type pill, and make your own yogurt at home based off of soy milk. We just currently don't have plant-based yogurt as a part of our regular diet. So it's just not one of my things personally that I'm eating right now. But if we move over to trying to make plant-based yogurt a regular in our diet, I'm going to give my hand a try at making it homemade, because then you don't have to have any of the other ingredients in it. But it just takes more time. You got to have some time and a little bit of know-how to make it happen.
Right. And for some people, they want that kind of fermented food in their diet. And for other people, they think that having yogurt is necessary to be healthy. So I guess it just kind of depends on your reasoning, and some people just enjoy eating it, and perhaps some of the yogurts out there have a lot of sugar added to them and makes it tasty. So there's kind of different reasons to consider whether or not you want to include it and look for an alternative. Jolie said, I just bought soy yogurt. Yeah.
I think soy yogurt's great, and look at the ingredients and see if you can buy one that doesn't have sugar or has just a little bit of sugar compared to others, because you can always mix it in with blueberries or raspberries or strawberries and add the natural sweetness, where not only are you getting the sweetness, but you're getting the vitamins, the minerals, the phytonutrients from the fruit as well. We know that berries, of course, are super healthy for us. So soy yogurt's a great way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Rachel wanted to know, I use nutritional yeast. Is that an ultra processed food? Should I limit or eliminate it?
I think you should not eliminate the nutritional yeast. Most folks, most docs and nutritionists, dietitians in the plant-based world are big fans of the nutritional yeast. There's a little bit debate about if you have certain kinds of inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's and colitis, if you're having a flare, you shouldn't eat it. Or maybe if you have a lot of flares, maybe you should take it out and see if it's something that could be affecting you. But for the other 99% of the population, you're probably fine eating nutritional yeast. It can be beneficial from a B12 standpoint, though you have to eat a fair amount 2 or 3 times a day, every day, to make sure that you're getting enough B12. So I still always recommend everybody to be taking a supplement, or to at least be checking a yearly B12 level, so you can make sure that you have enough B12. But yeah, nutritional yeast has got the B vitamins. It's got some protein in it, and it's basically, yeah, I don't know where Carlos Montero would put it, but I certainly consider it a healthy food.
Yeah, I had Dr. Joel Furman on the broadcast, and he had commented about nutritional yeast, saying that if he promotes using it, but he said that you should be careful because some of them contain folic acid, and he said to look for the ones that do not contain folic acid, because folate is a part of the the plant-based diet, and we get that in the greens and fruits like that, where the folic acid that some of the nutritional yeast, they have that added in, and it's just a synthetic unnecessary thing. So that, I think that was his stance on the nutritional yeast. Okay, you got,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And Green Thumb Grower said, I use tofu. Is that an ultra processed food? Is that okay to eat?
Tofu is processed, but it is not an ultra processed food. So in the world of soy, I would say, edamame, which are the young green soybeans, or matured soybeans, which are the sort of pale yellow that you have to soak and cook, like if you were making pinto beans or black beans. Those are, most people would consider that unprocessed, or I guess it's minimally processed because it has to be taken, picked off the plant and taken out of the pod. But that's on the least processed side of things. And then like isolated soy protein, or protein soy isolate, these things that are that you might find in a protein powder, or in a some sort of snack that has it. It would be on the other end. And so, soy milk and tofu and tempeh are very much towards the minimally processed end of things. They've been making tofu in Asia for thousands of years. The studies that look at, the folks that eat the most tofu versus the folks that eat the less, the least people who are eating more tofu do better. And so eat that tofu every day if you want. Tofu, tempeh, which is has a certain degree of fermentation with the soybean. Those are totally fine.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Have some people sighing relief, because they were glad that we talked about that. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I wanted to ask everybody to go ahead and click like to show your appreciation for what Dr. Pierce shared with us today. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us about what you do and how we can find you.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. And first of all, I thank you, everyone in the audience today, putting your comments in. What a treat to be here with Amy and to get a chance to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. Also, Amy, thanks for asking about what I do. I work with a great group of docs at Love Life Telehealth. And you can find us by just typing that into your search engine, or you could go to telehealth.love.life. We, between the handful of us docs, we cover all 50 states and internationally. Personally, I'm licensed in California, Florida, and Texas. So that's where the folks who see me come are in those states when they make the call. And, we tend to work along with your primary doc to help with some things that maybe they don't have the time, or sometimes don't have the specialization in to talk about. A number of my patients come and say, oh, my doc just doesn't understand what a plant-based lifestyle is like, and they're worried that I'm just doing my body harm. Or perhaps their primary doc knows tons about it, but they just don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it in a 15-minute visit. So we have 30 and 60-minute visits, and we take a look at your labs. We can order labs, we can order studies, we can write prescriptions. But in general, what we love to do is to take people, help them take themselves off of the medicines, and keeping in contact with your primary provider, to help peel off some of those diabetes medicines, peel off some of those blood pressure and cholesterol medicines, because so many folks just see their life turn around when they switch to this sort of a lifestyle. So would always happy to chat more about this on a one-on-one basis, of course.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. And we have Dr. Pierce's information in the show notes as well, so that you guys can go ahead and get in touch with him. And it's a wonderful practice that you're a part of. And I think it is so beneficial to so many people, especially if they're looking for somebody to help them in their journey with a plant-based lifestyle and support them, because they don't have to worry about trying to get to an office. They can just get on the computer or their smartphone and talk to you. And Green Warrior, tell us what you're going to remember about today as far as the ultra processed foods. Go ahead and type that in the comments, because I would really like to see what your takeaway is, and also that you could share that with other people who will be watching it a little bit later. I also wanted to thank Just Task Voice. She did the promos and she did the countdown, and she does so much to help support this channel. And Just Task Voice, can you tell us who's coming up next?
Do you ever let fear hold you back from making positive changes? Have you struggled to step outside of your comfort zone and embrace a healthier lifestyle? Join us as Esther shares how she conquered fear and embraced lasting change. Wednesday, April 9th, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on Be Green with Amy Live.
Yes, and I really so much appreciate all that you did today for us, Dr. Pierce. And if you wanted to check out National Health Association, and you can see Dr. Pierce's article here. And as he said, he's written many other articles also. And every time you come on, Dr. Pierce, you're just always so full of information, and you really take this to heart. And when you are researching to find the best possible answers for us, and and when we're armed with this knowledge, it makes it so much easier to adopt this lifestyle and stay on track. You know, I that's what I believe. I think that if you're serious about this lifestyle, you should be watching broadcasts like this. You should be following Dr. Pierce and other people, and just do that every day and make that a part of what you're doing, so that you can stay on top of latest research and get re-inspired every day. And I wanted to also, of course, thank you, Green Warrior, for joining us today. Your engagement and your support make these discussions meaningful and impactful. And I really hope that Dr. Pierce inspired you to take a closer look at your food choices and make some positive changes for your health and well-being, and for anybody that you care for as well. Because remember, every bite that we take, it's an opportunity to nourish our bodies and, like Dr. Pierce, become the healthiest version of ourselves. And please stay tuned for more empowering content. Please subscribe to my channel. Check out Dr. Pierce's social media as well, and share our message with others who you think can benefit, because today, together as Green Warriors, we can make a meaningful difference in the world. And as a special thank you to all of you who are tuning in today, I'm offering you 5 free recipes. So if you go to my website, begreenwithamy.com/join, I will send you 5 free recipes, and they will be inspiring and delicious. So I wanted to invite you, Green Warrior, to type my tagline in the comments. And then, Dr. Pierce, if you would like to join me as we sign off, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Until I see all of you again, remember, be strong, be well, and be green. Thank you so much, Dr. Pierce. Thank you, Green Warriors. I'll see you all soon.
Now you can get 5 free whole food plant-based SOS-free recipes from Be Green with Amy. Just click on the link in the show notes, and Amy will send you 5 free recipes, motivational quotes, and more, so you can be strong, be well, and